The 5G mobile phone standard will outshine everything that has existed before, not only in terms of data rates, but also in terms of capacity and latency, and thus make lightning fast reactions in the network possible. Blockchain, the Internet of Things, or autonomous driving will thus reach completely new dimensions. Clixoom Science Fiction, subscribe to us and you will find exciting science videos 3 times a week. A warm welcome.
1, 2,
10 gigabit per second, i.e. 10,000 megabit per second should be the transmission bandwidth of the new 5G mobile radio standard. These are really unimaginable speeds. The best rate available with the current LTE networks in regular operation is 300 megabit per second, and most smartphone users only have tariffs with a maximum of 50 megabit per second. Just to make it clear, with 5G you could load a movie about 600 times faster than with the best DSL connection. Wow! But not only these 5G data rates have it in them, 5G should above all shorten the running time of the signals in the network. This is by a factor of 40 compared to LTE. The so-called latency, i.e. signal delay, is then only 1 millisecond or less. In practice, this means that applications controlled via the internet have such short response times that they can no longer be perceived by humans. Delays in conversations will be a thing from the past, which is totally annoying, and this is not only exciting for conversations or gamers, but especially for the industry. Just think of cars that communicate in real time or human-machine interactions. Virtual and augmented reality, VR or AR. For example, service technicians could receive the necessary instructions via data glasses. Throughout the 5G history, the Federal Network Agency has an important role to play. It is responsible for ensuring that the frequency allocation procedure is objective and transparent. This is what the website of the German institution says. Digitization is progressing rapidly. This accompanied by a growing demand of high data rates and increasing consumer mobility. For sustainable digital infrastructures, suitable frequencies must be made available to market participants at an early stage, and in line with requirements, this should enable a fast, flexible and demand-oriented 5G rollout in Germany. But what's the technology behind it? On the one hand, the number of antennas for 5G must be increased significantly. There could then be more antennas in a cell than users. The technical term for such antenna systems is massive multiple input, multiple output. In short, massive MIMO. In addition, the networks for 5G will have to become denser so that the average distance between the base stations will be much smaller than with LTE. Higher frequencies will then have to be used for data transmission because the frequency spectrum currently used, which is between 0.8 and 2.6 GHz, is full. Specifically, we are talking about the range from 6 to 300 GHz, and it's thus also referred to as millimeter wave technology. Another point is the decentralized organization of mobile radio networks. In concrete terms, this means that certain data from a radio cell is filtered and processed directly in the associated station and not sent far away. With regard to the technical requirements, the Federal Network Agency of Germany states, "With our supply requirements, we are reaching the limits of what is economically reasonable and legally possible. By the end of 2022, we oblige every provider to set up at least 500 stations in addition to the requirements for roads and households for 5G. For example, in the case of 3 providers, we are talking about 1,500 stations in Germany alone, with which the new mobile communication standard must be introduced. In addition, each provider must set up a further 500 masts to improve coverage in rural areas by at least 100 megabits per second. But experts agree that LTE is not even fully developed yet, and a 5G super network will slowly develop. On the way there, 4.5G could also be an intermediate step. At least the mobile radio network for the mainstream will probably remain 4G for at least the next 5 years. From 2020, experts expect the first 5G island for certain applications. According to the Federal Network Agency, the auction of 5G frequencies is scheduled for the first quarter of 2019. It remains to be seen whether other companies besides Vodafone, Telecom and Telefonica will bid for the frequencies. By the end of 2022, however, at least 98% of households in Germany, for example, will have to be supplied with a data rate of 100 megabits per second. So far, the target for the three major established network operators has been to supply at least 97% of households with 50 megabits per second by 2020. The successful bidder must then also ensure that all federal highways and motorways are supplied with 100 megabits per second by the end of 2022. This will be an absolute revolution. We will have completely new apps, software and websites with quite sophisticated applications. I'm already extremely excited. Click here for our video. Star Trek's tractor beam becomes reality. Objects can float. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of our new videos. Stay tuned. See you soon.